The U.S. national debt is $14 trillion and mounting, quickly approaching the debt ceiling, which is expected to happen this month, but there's a little wiggle room that the government has until August. Also mounting is the debate over raising that debt ceiling, coming at a time lawmakers are claiming to get serious about reducing the deficit. But looking back, Congress has raised that debt limit 10 times over the last 10 years. So is there really any point to the whole debate? Joining me now to tell us what he thinks is Charlie McGrath. He's founder of Wide Awake News. Thank you so much for being with us. Now, I know the debt is high, but this debate over the debt ceiling, is there really a point to it if history serves that pretty much passing this raise to the debt ceiling is protocol?
Well, there is a point to making the debate. I think what we're going to see play out is another made-for-TV drama like we did with the potential government shutdown that we saw about a month ago. They're going to raise the debt ceiling because, that's the only way they can keep continuing expanding Empire America and spending money that we don't have. And in the last 6 years, last 3 years, we've had 6 debt ceilings. The largest in history was January 2010 of $1.9 trillion. Now, Geithner came out just a few days ago asking for $2 trillion in this go-around. And, the timing isn't lost on me at all, Lawrence. When they did the last debt raise of $1.9 trillion, it was right in the perfect time, so it wouldn't have to be talked about in the midterm elections. And they're doing the same thing this time. They want to get enough money, $2 trillion is what it's going to take to get past the 2012 election. So neither side has to talk about this. Neither of them have to be on the stump talking about an upcoming debt ceiling debate. They want to get it in the can now so that they can sail through the 2012 election without having to answer for throwing the country another $2 trillion in debt.
Well, because polls show that Americans really aren't in favor of raising the debt ceiling. Only 27% of Americans believe it should be increased. That's according to a CBS poll. 63% oppose doing so. But what's really the alternative? Sending financial markets in a tailspin?
Well, that's the fear. That's the fear that we're being presented. Geithner has sent 3 letters to Congress stating just that. If we don't raise the debt ceiling, then it's going to be pandemonium. But they're selling us fear. I mean, that is a form, as far as I'm concerned, of financial terrorism. We don't know what's going to happen because they keep raising the debt ceiling. Obviously, we're at $1.64 trillion in deficit spending this year. We obviously do not have the money to do this. We have a debt ceiling so Congress can keep a check on the amount of money that we're spending. But, there is no will to do this because the true power, who I think is truly running the country, are people like Ben Bernanke and Timothy Geithner, and they demand that we keep spending money that we don't have. And the American people are the ones who eventually will pay the toll for this. They want to use the fear tactics. They want to tell us it's going to be worse than 2008 ever was if we don't raise this debt ceiling. But again, we don't know how 2008 would have been. We're 3 years after the fact now. If we would have let these too big to fail back then, we might be on a clear path to recovery now, instead of this fictitious recovery that's being reported to us every day.
A couple things then. What do you think is the alternative? Let the United States hit that debt ceiling, default, and not be able to fund its activities, with countries like China losing all faith that they'll get paid back?
Well, I think China already knows that. It was not even 2 weeks ago where they decided that they were going to take 2/3 of their dollar-denominated assets and get rid of them. They understand the path we're on. So, pretending that we can just keep borrowing money to pay for wars and for programs that are completely nothing more than a waste, just because we borrow the money to pay for it doesn't mean we're sustainable. In fact, we're not sustainable. If we look at the debt ceiling over a small period of time, if we go back to 1980, $1.8 trillion adjusted for today's dollars was the debt limit of the country, the national debt, $1.8 trillion. If we fast forward to 1990, it doubled to $4.06 trillion. And if we take it up to 2000, we were at $5.6 trillion. If we look at 2008, this is the crux of it as far as I'm concerned. If we look at 2008, we were sitting at $7.7 trillion in national debt. Now, from 2008 to 2011, it's almost doubled to $14.3 trillion. Geithner wants another $2 trillion that's going to, make it $16.3 trillion by the end of 2012. it's exponential growth in our debt, and it is going to destroy this country.
How so? What do you think is really going to be the cost that people are going to pay of this debt that continues to mount?
Well, let's look at it in two different ways. I mean, we're between a rock and a hard place right now. We either keep funding or we shake the world market, or keep borrowing to fund the government, or we upset the world market, or we stop and we see an absolute implosion of equities in this country, the value of equities in this country, and Wall Street loses then. All these big firms, that are championing raising the debt ceiling, they would be the losers if we decided to cap our debt spending. The people, us, the American citizens are the ones who are going to lose if we keep raising the debt ceiling. And we already started to see that happen in the last few months. I mean, if we look at how QE2 has played out, to where we saw commodity prices escalating almost to hyperinflationary levels when we looked at silver and we looked at food commodities, that's a direct result of this borrowing and money printing, money we don't have, dumping it into the economy. And this is keeping Wall Street healthy. This is why they're all for this debt ceiling increase. I think the smart thing to do is stop. If we just stopped, like I said, if we just stopped in 2008, we'd be sitting with an economy that's on the way back to recovery and only $7 trillion with the national debt. The proponents being Tim Geithner, Ben Bernanke, people like the head of J.P. Morgan Chase, who want to raise this debt limit. If we go their path, they will be successful, but the American people will end up being the loser.
And just really quickly, though, I mean, the government does give a lot of money out to the American people at a time right now when a lot of those people are facing joblessness. 1 in 7 are on food stamps, which is terrible, but at the same time, they're on food stamps. 59% of Americans are receiving some kind of federal money. So if the United States doesn't raise the debt ceiling, isn't able to continue its normal functioning, you could argue that hurts average folks, too, not just the banks.
It absolutely hurts average folks, but this is the economy that we live in, Laura. 45 million people on food stamps is a fact. But the fact is, we're not going to make it better by borrowing more money to give to Wall Street. I mean, look what's happened in the last 3 years the way it is now. We've almost doubled our national debt. And at the beginning, in 2007, we had 27 million people on food stamps. We've almost doubled our national debt, and now we have 45 million people on food stamps. So, I mean, the logic of borrowing money in order to keep safety nets in place doesn't work. I mean, we see that. All we have to do is, look at the condition we're in, and it's a direct result of the policy of our Federal Reserve and our Treasury to keep borrowing money that we don't have. And pretty soon, not pretty soon, already, countries like China are extremely concerned about how we're treating their investments.
At the same time, they do continue to buy U.S. debt, and there does continue to be a customer for U.S. debt. So I guess my question is, are you okay with average people that have been so hurt in this recession getting hurt further if there is financial austerity?
Well, no, I'm not okay with it. No, I'm absolutely not.
But isn't that what would happen if the debt ceiling wasn't raised? That essentially is a form of financial austerity because the government won't be able to continue funding everything that it does, which includes benefits for people.
To a point. Now, I mean, if we look at what the government's money spent, the $4 trillion budget that they have, here we've killed Osama bin Laden. So, I mean, we could eliminate or rein back in this $1 trillion a year military spending that we have. If we cut spending in the government, it doesn't have to be to the people who are suffering the most. How about we cut to the too big to fails that have received, carte blanche when it comes to bailouts, when it comes to guarantees? Let's claw back some of this money that has led to record profits and record bonuses on Wall Street.
You make a fair point there, and I want to thank you for weighing in on all of this. As you talk about the effect of quantitative easing, we know that coming up this Monday, Timothy Geithner will talk to Chinese officials and again press them to change the value of their currency, which essentially would lower the dollar further, continuing kind of some of those trends you spoke to. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. Maybe we'll talk to you about it. That was Charlie McGrath, founder of WideAwakeNews.com.